for those that are new to this particular presentation, my name is Tracy Hanton. I'm the Assistant Director at Purdue University, Fort Wayne. And I'm going to be talking about intentional or lifelong career planning. So this was a quote that came from the Indiana Commission of Higher Education in 2017. And they said, career preparation should be an integral and intentional part of a student's education. And I don't know how many of you can think back to the very first time that somebody asked you, what did you want to be when you grew up? And then to the time that somebody began to really start to help you to harness those particular areas. For most of us, they might ask us when we're a toddler, but in my generation, I didn't get any realm per se of career counseling till high school. And the little bit that I got is probably why I do career counseling as it is today, because it was very minimal and it didn't really set me on a path that I needed to be on. I actually kind of went around in a circle, but it was a great circle. And then I finally kind of ended up getting to where it is that I wanted to be. And so hopefully no one has that piece. But really what the Indiana Commission is saying is that this is something that should be taking place from the time a child enters school, and it should be immersed throughout their whole time. So, why is lifelong career planning important? So, what is lifelong career planning? So, career planning is a process that helps you manage the important life and work decisions. All right. Being able to do this career planning is actually an important skill. And it's something that is going to continue to go on repeat time after time after time. So one of the things when I'm working with students is I talk about the 8 competencies, and these are those competencies. And you'll notice right here, it says career management. Career management is that lifelong career planning piece. It's that lifelong learning. I'm certain that you've heard people say, oh, I'm a lifelong learner. And you're asking, well, what does that mean? Because they obviously don't necessarily have 15 degrees behind their name. So what is that lifelong learning? So it is the degrees, but it's also the various types of professional development. So even sitting in this workshop, this is part of lifelong learning because you're gaining tips, you're gaining skills that are going to help you throughout your whole time and your whole career. So it's going to be the graduate degrees, it's going to be certificates, it's going to be credential stacking, and just being able to kind of gather different pieces. But it's also making sure that you actually understand a lot of the foundation in terms of how you're going to get to whatever your point B, point C, D, E, F, or G is going to be. And those things are going to change. I know when we go off to interviews, we get this question about where do you see yourself in 5 years? And a lot of times people are not able to actually answer that question because they haven't figured out where they're going to be at in 5 years. Where you're going to be at in 5 years isn't just about a job title. It's about what skills you want to be using. It's about possibly what company you want to be working at, but it's not always about a job title. It could be about the industry, or as we call it, the career cluster. And so being able to know what those pieces are and then being able to kind of process that and then put that into those words and kind of really be able to actually answer that particular question. So I talked about career clusters just a moment ago. So what are career clusters? So career clusters, those are the broad groups of occupations and industries. Career clusters do not necessarily coincide with what you might major in. All right. So these are the 16 career clusters: architecture, art, audio, visual technology, business management, education and training. Education and training is actually the career cluster that I work in. But I actually could do this particular job in a human services organization, and I have. So I've been in the human services career cluster, but I wasn't necessarily doing quote unquote a social work type of job. So sometimes it can mirror what you major in, and sometimes it might not. In each of these career clusters, they have different types of pathways that you're going to be able to take. Some are going to lead and go straight up. Some are going to be lateral and go across. And some are going to be in realms where you might actually jump. You could have a business degree and you could work in this career cluster. You could work in this career cluster, this career cluster, this career cluster. You can be working in this career cluster. So you can be working in various types of industry. But it's what happens when you decide what that career pathway is going to actually look like for you. And so as you're figuring out how I'm going to do this lifelong career planning and being very intentional about it, it's also understanding the areas of these career clusters and then what happens with some of the career pathways. And again, it doesn't mean that they don't all end up tying in together, because they just might. So the career pathways, those are integrated collections of services or programs that add to a student's employability skills. Sometimes it's extra training. Sometimes it puts them in high demand types of jobs. So it really just depends on what the cluster is that you're in, and then what those different pathways are that you could actually take even just under one type of pathway or type of cluster. And so I use the example of arts, AV, technology, and communications, mostly because I have my degrees in communication. So, but if you see that this is the cluster, but with that cluster, these are the different pathways that are general that you would actually take. And again, I told you that my degree is in communications, but I don't work necessarily in any of these pathways, and I don't work in what's considered these clusters. But I have skill in audio and visual communications technology. I have skills in the broadcasting piece, the performing arts, no printed technology necessarily, no visual arts, and no communication. So I actually utilize these areas not as pathways, but I actually utilize them as skills and areas of expertise. So being able to figure out not just the what I want to do, but the how I actually plan on getting there. And those are the things that you're really kind of pulling together and you are thinking about, and they're going to always change. Because again, you can be in one area, but you can decide that you want to have more knowledge in something that doesn't look like it necessarily fits what your major is or actually fits the job that you want to do. But it gives you a skill that you want to actually be able to use. Earlier, I used the terminology of credential stacking. So sometimes that's taking different types of certificates in a particular cluster or in a particular pathway and being able to build off of those things in addition to what you might even have your degree actually in. So being able to say that you have that skill or you have those types of credentials, those are things that you're going to be able to actually add. I also want to say that when you're figuring out your career plan and you're figuring out your career future, it's great if our employers see the importance of our professional development, but it's not necessarily their responsibility. Your career, your responsibility. So you want to be thinking about what are the things that I need to do that next piece of the job that I want to do, and how do I gain those skills? And being able to figure out how you go about gaining those skills. It could be sitting in on a webinar. It could be taking some kind of non-credit course that gives you skill in something that you think is going to help you down the road in your actual field of the endeavor and things of that nature. So really being able to learn how to do it fairly well, and then being able to have somebody that you can kind of go back and check in with. That's why it's really great to make sure that you utilize your career services center, that you utilize them as an alumni, and just finding out what things you can gain and gather from that actual place. But also, if you're not able to do that, being able to find a career coach to kind of help pull you through for those particular things. And because it's lifelong, you're going to be doing some of these things on and off your entire life. Statistics say that you can have anywhere from 7 to 14 different types of career paths, career cluster in terms of different jobs that you're going to be able to have in your lifetime. So they could be things that actually coincide, and then they could be things that maybe you only do on a part-time basis, or some things that you have some other maybe entrepreneurial types of endeavors. Maybe you want to write a book. That's something completely different, but it still falls into being able to look at your career plan. And then there are going to be some things that you might not have actually thought of. And those things are going to come up sometimes in a short manner, but sometimes they're going to be things that you're going to be able to kind of pre-plan for. So, how to career plan at any age or stage. Keep an updated resume. Make career planning a regular event. I normally tell students every 6 months, you should pull out your resume, you should look where you've been, where you're at, and then think about where it is that you're trying to go. And that, of course, goes into the next point, which is reflect on your career path since your last career planning session. So this is something that you're going to continuously be doing. And some things are going to happen and they're going to come to you at a time that you might not have even been thinking about those areas. Keeping a record of your achievements. How many of you have a place where you write down you write down your achievements, and it's just a list with what you did, where you did it, and the time frame that you did it. It doesn't mean that you're going to plug all of these achievements onto a resume, but you're going to be able to look at some of those achievements. You're going to be able to look at the skills that you built, and then you're going to be able to identify your transferable skills that are skills that go into almost any field that you're even thinking of. So one of the skills that I often talk about for myself is my ability to build rapport quickly. And at the surface, somebody might say, well, what does being able to build rapport quickly, what does it really have to do with anything? Well, I do a lot of brief types of counseling. And so I might not see somebody for another year or two. And so I have to be able to get in with them, understand what they need, and then be able to give them a system, a process to be able to do whatever their next steps might be. I might not have 3 days to kind of get to know them. So I have to figure out and utilize ways to be able to gather that information and be able to use it to help them look at their transferable skills, kind of identify some of their achievements, and then be able to help them to be able to set the career goals. And so that skill is very helpful for me in helping me to be able to do that in a short period of time. So on the surface, it doesn't look like it's a viable skill per se, but it's actually a skill that suits me well in the jobs that I actually do. And so that's how you want to be thinking about your skills, your abilities, and how they actually affect where it is that you are trying to go. And then at some point, you might need to look at more education. Is it a new degree that I need? Do I need to just sit in on a couple of courses? Could they be non-credit courses? Do I need to just get a basic certificate in something saying that I completed the coursework? So I think it's like edx.com. That's a great place where people kind of go and get some quick information and learn some new skills and techniques in a variety of different areas. So being able to figure that out, or if the job that you're working, if they have conferences, if the field that you're in, if they have an association, are you a part of that association? With that association, do they have professional development? Are you able to serve on committees? All of those things are ways that you can start leveraging that educational background. It's ways that you can start leveraging information that you have and really being able to propel yourself where it is that you want to go. One of the things that's not on this is gathering a mentor or two or three and working with them to really help you to figure out what you want to do, what are some ways that you can get there. And then they also just kind of being able to have that opportunity to really kind of build that relationship with you. And you have access sometimes to their network and things of that nature to really help you in your relationship building. We all know, we all hear that your network is your net worth. Well, there's some truth to that. And so being able to build that up is going to be a great skill and a great thing to do and to help you in your career planning. Um, and with everything is being able to step out of your actual comfort zone. And then researching further career advancement opportunities. And sometimes these opportunities are going to take place at the job that you're at. And then other times you are going to have to find a new job to be able to do that. But being able to know what are all of the things that you actually have in place to kind of pull you to that particular area and help you to continue that journey. And once you've done all of those things, guess what? At some point, you go back on repeat. But if you're keeping up with some of the things, you don't have to utilize the whole process over again. because there's some things that you've been keeping up with. So keeping your resume updated, outlining all of your achievements at your current place of employment, and being able to pull those things together and pull those things out. So you are going to be doing this the rest of your life, and you want to be able to not just know the steps, but really to put it into practice and make the application of it. And you're going to see how it actually pays off for you. So, are there any questions about lifelong career planning?
If there are, please feel free to unmute yourself or just type them in. We got a few minutes for questions.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead.
So the talk about mentors, is it applicable to just go up to the mentor that you want and say, can you be my mentor? Or what's the best way to ask that question? Or how do you approach?
That is an excellent question. So sometimes it takes place very organically. So I will give you the instance of my mentor. I met her, and she had this very powerful presentation. I really had no particular clue about who she really was. I just knew that her presentation that she did was excellent. And I heard that she was a leader in her field on diversity and inclusion. I went up, I introduced myself, and we just began to have a general conversation. Didn't see her for another year till the next conference. Saw her at the conference. She remembered me. She greeted me with this hug. She was like, hey, how you been? What's been going on? What do you do? That kind of thing. We continued our conversation. We went, had lunch, that sort of thing. And we just began to develop a relationship. And then it was the following year that we were at the conference again, and we were having this conversation. And I didn't have a specific mentor at that time. And I just turned to her and I said, would you be able to mentor me? And her response was, I can, but I want to know how dedicated you are going to be. Because we had already developed a type of friendly relationship. And so mentorship is a relationship, and it's a relationship that's kind of give and take. It's not that you just go and sit at their feet and absorb all the knowledge and go off into Wonderland somewhere. They might have different assignments that they want you to do. They might have different areas that they want to push you. My mentor, she ended up pushing me to do presentations in spaces that I had no intention of ever doing presentations. And that's what she did for me. And now she's still pushing me in spaces. Your mentor can make you uncomfortable because they're going to push you into spaces that you weren't even thinking you should be in. I'm now thinking about an EDD. That wasn't my intent 5-7 years ago. Okay, so it can happen very organically, or it can happen in the instance where you ask for that. But when you ask for it, you need to know what you want from that relationship, because you can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different mentors that help you in different areas within your life. And they can all be career related, but they can all help you in a single manner. And I would also add, allow it to put you in a position to be a mentor to somebody else. So make sure that whatever you're gleaning, we don't glean from people to keep it. We should glean so that we can get it back.
For sure. Thank you.
Tracy, thank you again. Really appreciate your expertise.
You are quite welcome.
Okay. Awesome.
Have a great one. Take care,
All right,
everybody.
You too. Thanks, everyone.